Okay, I have gathered some supplies for a beginning project. We have our yarn, a variety of crochet hooks, stitch markers if you need them, scissors, and darning needles for weaving in our ends at the end. Okay, for today's tutorial I am going to use a Lion brand yarn, Pound of Love. I am not sponsored by Lion brand. This is just something that I had on hand, and what I want to do is explain this label here and what these symbols and this information means. Okay, I'm going to bring this up here and get it to, let's get it to focus. All right, when you start a pattern, the pattern is going to tell you the weight of the yarn, and that's what this number is. This number can range starting at 1 all the way up to 7 to your chunky. 1 is like a really thread. It's like a thread. When your pattern tells you what weight of yarn to use, that's what this number is. This is a number 4 medium worsted weight. If you've heard those terms, that's what that means. So this is your hook size that goes with this yarn. This is your recommended hook size. A number 6 millimeter, that is a UK term. The J is an American term, but the number 6 is a UK term. And what these numbers on the sides here are going to tell you is that if you do 14 stitches across times 18 rows, you will get a 4" by 4" swatch, and that will help tell you how much of this yarn you need. So if you're making a baby blanket and let's say it's 36 inches by 36 inches and you need to know how much yarn you're going to use, this information is what is going to help you, and it tells you you've got 1,020 yards in this skein. Okay, next up are our crochet hooks. Now I only have a few variations here. There are so many different crochet hooks on the market, different styles. I suggest that you just try a few. Pick a few, try them, see how you like them. What I have found for me is these plastic crochet hooks are really good. I've got tons. I've got them all the way up till they're really, really thick to a 25 millimeter, you know, all the way down to the tiniest ones. For me, these are good when I'm working with something really thin, like this hook here, because after a couple of hours of working on a project, with it being this thin, my hand starts to cramp up, right? This is actually thinner than a ballpoint pen. So they're really good. They're really sturdy. They get the job done. They're great, but for me, they cramp up my hand a little bit. So these are good for short-term projects. Aluminum hooks have been around forever, and they're really good. They're sturdy. I like them. I learned how to crochet as a child with aluminum hooks. That's before all the fancy ones came out. I tend to gravitate towards a hook with a thicker handle, and this again, what I was saying is so that my hand doesn't cramp up. Now I hold my hook like a knife, and I crochet into my work and I hold it like a knife. Some people hold it, you'll have these indentions on the sides, they'll hold it like a pen and they'll crochet in and out. Again, whatever is comfortable for you. You will see people hold their hooks in different ways, and I suggest, again, try it out. See whatever's comfortable for you. My preference is a thicker handle, and the difference between these two, if you notice, it's a longer handle. So when I'm doing, this is a clover. I think this is a clover. Yeah, this is a clover. When I'm working with this hook, which clovers are very good hooks, it doesn't extend past, and sometimes this can irritate me because it hits where it hits on my hand. This is a Susan Bates soft handle. I love Susan Bates. Again, I'm not sponsored by her. I just have, you know, love her hooks. Her hooks tend to be a little bit more pointy on the end, so you can really get through your stitches, and the neck is pretty deep, so it can really catch those stitches. But look how far that extends past I like that. That fits my hand a little bit better. And so I do love a Susan Bates crochet hook. Now we have stitch markers. Again, y'all, there are so many different types of stitch markers out there. Get what is comfortable for you. And then some patterns might call for a different stitch marker. This one is a little bit bigger. This is more for a chunkier yarn, whereas this one is more for your worsted weight, you know, below. And then we have our safety pin type stitch markers where you put that in and it's not going anywhere. It's really not going to go anywhere. These tend to slip out if you're not careful, so just know that about these. Next we have our scissors. They come in different styles, different sizes, whatever your preference is. Just get a good pair of scissors. And finally we have our darning needles. I think I got this pack on Amazon for a couple of dollars. It wasn't that expensive. Darning needles are going to be blunt on the end. They're not going to be sharp. And you don't really want them sharp on the end, because what's going to happen is they're going to snag on your project. And you really don't want that to happen. You want it to be able to just kind of push through your stitches and weave in those tail ends without snagging. See how big this eye is right here? That will accommodate a chunky yarn. It doesn't look like it, but it will. I've done it. So they do come with different size eyes for the different size yarn. All of the products here are not very expensive. A couple of dollars. I think maybe the most expensive thing would probably be your hooks, depending on what brand. I have a few bamboo hooks that were a little pricey, and they were good. I tried them out. They were nice, but I still went right back to my Susan Bates hook, which these are, I think, only $5, $6 a piece where I'm located. Okay, before you start your project, you need to figure out which way you're going to use your yarn or pull from your yarn. Now, you can either pull from the inside, or you can pull from the outside. You take this wrapper off and you do it that way. I tend to pull from the inside because when I do that, for most of this ball of yarn, it's not going to roll around. It's going to stay stationary right where it is. The only downfall to that is when you have to dig into the middle to pull it out, and when you do, sometimes it'll come out in this little chunk, and you just have to loosen that up. But then it's smooth sailing from there, because this isn't going to go anywhere. It stays pretty much stationary. When you pull from the outside, of course it's going to flop around. It has to, so that you can get your yarn. And so I just tend to pull from the inside, and we'll set this over here, and it'll come out, and you just find your end. See? There we go. Okay, first things first, slip knot. Let's learn how to put a slip knot on our hook. There are many different ways, whatever again is easiest for you. This is a way that I learned how to do as a child, and it just kind of stuck with me. And so we're going to take our yarn in between our fingers right here, and I'm going to wrap it around my two fingers. You see that? See how I made a little X? Let's do this again. Hold my yarn, wrap it around my fingers like that. Take my hook under the first, snag the top. You see that? Under the first, snag the top, pull it through. Now I've got my slip knot. It's already on my hook. We are ready to go. Let's do this one more time. Over the fingers, under the first, grab the second one, pull it through. We've got our slip knot on our hook, and we are ready to go. Okay, next we are going to learn how to hold our yarn. Since you are watching these YouTube videos, you probably have noticed by now there are 101 different ways to hold your yarn. None of them are right and none of them are wrong. It is 100% up to what is comfortable for you. And that is my philosophy when it comes to this craft. As long as you get to where you're going in the end, it really doesn't matter how you got there. And so I suggest that you try many different ways and figure out what is comfortable for you. I was taught one way as a child, way before YouTube was ever even thought about, and so this way is ingrained in me, you know, old dogs, new tricks kind of thing. So I'm going to show you how I do it and why I do it the way I do. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to take my pinky and I'm going to wrap my yarn around my pinky, and I'm going to take my yarn across all my fingers. See that? Let's do this again. Wrap it around my pinky. Take the yarn across all of my fingers. I'm going to take my middle finger and my thumb, and I'm going to hold my work. Now, here's the reason I do it this way. I have control of the tension, how loose or how tight I have my pinky. I have control of how fast or how slow my yarn is fed to my project from my source. I've got control. I have control here with my index finger. So let's say I accidentally pull up too big of a loop on my project. All I have to do is raise my index finger and the loop clenches back down to my hook. You see that? I have control here. And I have control from my source how much yarn is fed, and that's really what you need. You need to find a way to where you can control the tension of and how much yarn is being fed to your project from your yarn source. That is important. Okay, that is how I control my yarn. I'm gonna do it one more time for you. Okay, pinky, wrap it around my pinky, bring it around the back of all my fingers, middle finger and thumb. I can hold my project. I have control with my index finger, and I control how much yarn is fed from my source through my pinky. Okay, we are going to learn how to chain. Now I am using a 6.5 hook for this. The yarn calls for a 6. I'm going to go up a half a size so that the chains will be a little looser, and hopefully you could see them a little bit better. All right, so we've already learned how to put a slip knot on our hook. We've already learned how to hold our yarn. This is how we're going to chain. All right, we're going to do what's called a yarn over. That means that you're going to make sure that you have a piece of yarn over the back of your hook. All right, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Now if you'll notice, I'm moving my hook around when I go to yarn over, and that's okay. I think that's kind of normal to have that happen. What you want to pay attention to and make sure of is that this neck of your hook is facing the bottom of your loop when you go to pull it through. So it doesn't matter if it's facing any other way when you're yarning over, but if it's not facing the bottom, right? See that? You're not getting through the loop. Even if you go to the side, it's getting caught, you're not going to get through that loop. You want it to go through smoothly, so you make sure it's facing the bottom of that loop. Okay? Yarn over. See? The bottom of the loop. Make sure you got it to the bottom of the loop. You are going to be able to recognize your chains because they are going to look like V's. 1 V, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's not forget this beginning chain. Sometimes, depending on what stitch you're making, this chain can get a little hidden, and you have to make sure that you find it. Remember, we said that crochet is all about math, And if your stitches are not correct in your foundation chain, then you're not going to have the right, your math is going to be off and your stitch count is going to be off. And then whatever design you're making for your project is just going to be off. So it's very important to slow down, count your chains, make sure you have the appropriate amount for the pattern that you're doing. Now, I'll tell you what does not count. What does not count is this loop on the hook. That loop on the hook never counts. That's just a placeholder for your hook. It never counts. So let's recognize these again. Your little V's. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 on there. We'll do a couple of more chains together, okay? Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. Now I'm going to give you a hint, okay? Your foundation chain is very important when it comes to getting the count correct. I'll tell you what also is very important is making sure that this chain is not too tight, because what will happen is you will start out with a project that is short in the beginning, and then it'll start to go out. And it'll start to go out because you'll get more comfortable with your stitches and you'll loosen up and your tension will become loose, and then you will have this misshapen project, and there's no way to fix it, guys. There's no way to fix that. You just got to start over. And sometimes it will be, your foundation chain can be so tight that it'll be a little rounded, right? It'll be a little rounded, and you'll have this round part to it, and you can't stretch it. You cannot stretch it out to make it match the looser chains, the looser stitches at the top. So here's one trick to fix that, or to combat or reduce the risk of this happening to you, especially in the beginning before you get comfortable with your tension, okay? Go up a hook size. Go up a hook size. If your yarn says the recommended hook size is 6, go up a 6.5. Go up to an 8, right? Then go back. Before you start your first row, go back to the recommended hook size that your yarn tells you to do. That's how you can reduce the risk of having something that's just not going to work out. Okay? So continue to do this, practice it, and join me for my next video when we start learning how to do some of our stitches. Enjoy, and thank you for stopping by.